Welcome to the Healthy Compulsive Project podcast, where you can take a deep dive to explore the pitfalls and potential of the obsessive compulsive personality, offering hope and help for perfectionists, workaholics, micromanagers, type A personality, and control freaks. Hello, everyone. Gary Trosclair here, psychotherapist, Jungian psychoanalyst, and author of the Healthy Compulsive Project book, blog, and podcast. Creativity may be one of the most fulfilling activities we have, unless it's blocked. Then the desire to be creative can feel like torture. But there are ways to get unblocked. In this episode, we'll talk about the possible benefit of compulsive urges and the destructiveness of obsessive thinking. We'll look at how the avoidance of feelings of anxiety and insecurity becomes a block. And we'll look at the positive benefits of being in the present moment and how personifying the blocker can be helpful. So join me for episode 96 of the Healthy Compulsive Project podcast, 4 tools to help obsessives move past creative blocks. How do we move past creative blocks? Many people get stuck and aren't able to complete creative projects. But this can be particularly disturbing for people with obsessive-compulsive personality and obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. Because, as I see it, creativity springs from compulsion. There's something you need to do, but with a creative block, you can't. The word compulsive has gotten a bad rap. Its etymology describes an inner urge that's hard to resist, and that's not always bad. For example, writer Khaled Hosseini, whose novel The Kite Runner resonated with millions of readers, said, "All stories I write are compulsive. Anything I've ever written was because I don't have a choice. I write stories because I can't wait to tell it. I can't wait to see how it ends." That's the end of the quote. Hosseini is not unique in this respect. Most creative people create not because they simply want to. They have to, and that's compulsive. But if they're also obsessive, if they think endlessly and get caught in perfectionistic forecasting loops, they will encounter creative blocks. Their standards are too high to get past. Imagine a concrete wall. No amount of thinking will blast through it. But release the need to have things a certain way and face the anxiety you're trying to avoid, and you've got a chance to get around it. The unconscious produces these irresistible creative urges for a reason. They aren't random or necessarily pathological, but arise from a deep human need to evolve. While these conditions are sometimes solely for the benefit of the creator, others speak to an entire culture, prodding it to move in a more balanced direction. This deep creative urge is part of evolution. Put poetically, it's nature's way of helping life to thrive. But, more scientifically, it's simply that if some of us have a tendency to try new things, we're all more likely to survive because we have more options. But no matter how strong, this compulsive creative urge can be blocked by the obsessive part of the obsessive-compulsive. Some people who are obsessive-compulsive dwell mainly in the obsessive, that is, thinking realm, and don't make it to the compulsive, that is, doing realm. The obsessive part tends to overthink what the compulsive creative part hopes to do, to the point that they can't complete or even start tasks. Obsessing can lead to perfectionistic standards and then to procrastination, which keeps you from following through on the urge to create because you might imagine that it won't be good enough. So, you see the problem. Your obsessive side and your compulsive side are at odds. Maybe we should call it compulsive-obsessive when we have creative blocks, since the urge to create arises, but obsessive thinking keeps us from following through. Here are 4 tools to help you move past your creative blocks. 1. Approach anxiety. Don't try to think your way out of it. Obsessing is basically a way of trying to avoid the anxiety that usually comes with creation. Rather than leaning into the anxiety, the obsessive person keeps trying to think their way past it, imagining that they can avoid it by figuring out how to keep things from going south through planning and control. Typically, obsessives sense a feeling coming on that they don't want to have, for instance, dread, sadness, or powerlessness, and they start, quote, thinking with the unconscious hope that if they can just figure it out, they won't experience the horrible feeling. A certain amount of proactive planning can be adaptive, but too much and you're never going to get anything done. The cure for almost all anxiety is approach rather than avoidance. Anxiety itself isn't really a problem. Seeing the anxiety as dangerous and avoiding it by not completing projects is the problem. No one ever died from anxiety. It is uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. Expose yourself to what you fear by taking chances or by coming to terms with the worst-case scenario. Rather than trying to prevent a disaster, know that you can survive it. Research tells us that we handle catastrophes much better than we think we will. Check out Daniel Gilbert's book, Stumbling on Happiness, or his article about affective forecasting. This tendency to underestimate our resilience applies to imagined disasters, such as vehement criticism of our work. You've already survived far worse than that. Once you've come to terms with the worst-case scenario, return to the present and savor the process of making something new. Even if you just decide to write, or whatever your creative venue is, for 5 minutes, you're going in the right direction. 2. Separate your insecurity from your creative project. But why does creativity make us so anxious? Often it's because creative urges and talent have been hijacked for other purposes. The energy originally intended for creativity is enlisted to prove worth or goodness in order to calm insecurity or a sense of inadequacy. The need to prove worth or goodness puts too much weight on the creative product and it becomes harder to complete it. The what-ifs take over, like, what if it reveals that I'm really not a creative, smart person? What if this is really just selfish and indulgent? What if I'm just wasting everyone's time with this? What if it looks like I didn't work hard enough on it? What if it's not complete? What if I have to work really hard at it? Does that mean I'm not really smart or talented? If you fear that the completion of your project will reveal that you have no talent, you may unconsciously feel that it's better to stay in the limbo of not knowing. For some people, their identity as a creator is so fundamental to their sense of themselves that they can't tolerate taking the chance of finding out that they aren't what they had hoped they were. Your project may not succeed, and that's in quotes too, by resonating with others. That's the risk that always comes with being creative. But success or, quote, failure doesn't indicate whether you are or are not a good or worthwhile person. That needs to be a decision separate from the process of the project you're working on. Be very clear with yourself what you're doing this project for. What was your original motivation? What is important about it? Don't let your insecurities hijack the more organic and forward-looking cause. You can't control whether others will like your project, but you can control whether you follow through on your inspirations. Third tool, personify and dialogue with the blocker. Creative blocks are a standoff, a conflict between two parts of your personality. Many people experience an inner critical voice which sets unrealistic standards that keeps them from completing projects. This part of you may feel that it has a protective role to play as a quality control gatekeeper, making sure that you don't put out work that's subpar and leads to external criticism. But these voices often get too big for their britches. They take command rather than serving as consultants, tricking us into thinking that they should be in charge. The perfect becomes the enemy of the good. I've described how to dialogue with these voices in a previous post. That would be episode 32 of the podcast. Approach the critical voice with respect and curiosity, and communicate that it doesn't need to scrutinize you so much. This dialogue requires time alone when you won't be disturbed so that you can go into a state deep enough to actually feel that voice's concern, and so that the critical part of you can experience the creative part as competent enough to pull it off. It needs to be an emotionally engaged interaction, not just an effort to make yourself more reasonable. Write it out in your journal as it happens. If the critical part of you learns to trust the creative part of you, it's more likely to allow projects to move forward. Otherwise, it will dig its heels in and save you from putting out what it sees as a looming disaster. And tool 4, create in the present, not the past. Unresolved issues from the past can also cause creative blocks. Even if you aren't aware of it, you may feel as if you're still living in the past, dealing with problems from childhood that keep you from completing projects. For instance, you might fear surpassing a parent or a sibling. You might want to punish a parent for what they did wrong by not giving them the gratification of seeing you succeed. Or you refuse to commit to a project and complete it in order to rebel against authority figures. If you felt controlled when you were young, you may feel a strong urge to be autonomous by not being diligent. Autonomy is a powerful motivator. You may unwittingly sacrifice creativity to be free of control if diligence means control to you. These sorts of blocks may require a deep dive with a therapist to work through, but on your own, you can at least journal and review what your priorities are. Is it to do battle with the past or to move into the future? As with issues of insecurity and inadequacy, unresolved issues from the past need to be separated from your creative urges. Now, why this matters. Writer David Brooks posted a story in the New York Times that reminds us why this is important, and here I quote him. There used to be a sense, inherited from the Romantic era, that novelists and artists served as consciences of the nation and sages and prophets who could stand apart from us and tell us who we are. As the sociologist C. Wright Mills once put it, the independent artist and intellectual are among the few remaining personalities equipped to resist and to fight the stereotyping and consequent death of genuinely living things. David Brooks goes on to say that what's changed is that in the last 50 years, we've lost the confidence and audacity that led to great literature. Fears of disapproval have blocked us from saying what we believe, and we have become compliant instead of audacious. This is a loss for everyone. Moving past creative blocks isn't easy or simple, but responding to those compelling urges that originally inspired you and seeing the creative project finished is well worth it. It's a win for you and the world around you. You can find transcripts of this podcast with links to research sources and lots more at the Healthy Compulsive blog, www.thehealthycompulsive.com. If you'd like to subscribe to the Healthy Compulsive podcast, hit that subscribe button. And for a thorough guide to cultivating the positive potential of the compulsive personality, find my book on Amazon, The Healthy Compulsive, Healing Obsessive Compulsive Personality Disorder and Taking the Wheel of the Driven Personality. And if you find any of these helpful, let others know by leaving a review. Till next time, enjoy the drive.